They don't love you like I love you. Wait. They don't love you like I love you. Days done.
Tonight.
Not me. I. Great. You got us together. You got us separate. Was that good?
Yeah, you should clip that.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
I'm Reece.
And I'm Dea.
And we are
Literally dead.
Thank you for joining us for another episode.
Thank you. How's your January, February going?
I've been through.
Fair enough.
Sorry, that's from my kid. How's yours?
I haven't stopped eating.
No.
Most people stop after Christmas, but I just decided, nah, I'm gonna keep going.
You know what? I live for that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Well, if you want to stop that, maybe we could talk about the film that we watched. Because it definitely stopped me eating.
Oh yeah, speaking of food. Yeah, I wanted to do a zombie film because I love them, and Reece said, no, we don't want to do a zombie film anymore because we did 2 last year.
Yeah.
So,
well, a whole year ago we did 2, so never again.
yeah.
No.
So we had to compromise.
Yes. And we did a sheep zombie movie.
Yeah. And you can see Tyrese is dressed up.
Oh yeah, I dressed as a sheep for the benefit of the listener. I'm wearing a woolly jumper. I don't think it's real wool, but you know what?
It looks sheepy enough.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you're wearing black, so Black Sheep, which is the name of the film.
Oh my god, the name of the film.
Yeah. This time we watched Black Sheep. Do you want to give the spoiler-free synopsis? And then we'll...
Yeah, it's from New Zealand, actually. We've never been there before on our travels.
No, not at all.
No.
Not even close.
A genetic experiment gone wrong turns a flock of sheep into bloodthirsty monsters.
That was a good synopsis.
Thank you.
I feel like it just explains the entire film. I think we can leave it there, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening.
Bye.
No, don't go anywhere. Stay, please.
You can find us on...
No. We're so into it this time. I hope everyone's been okay at home.
We're actually filming at a reasonable time of day today.
Yeah, so it's really weird because we're like, wait, my brain's functioning. I don't know how to do this.
Because usually we will talk for ages and then we'll get into the movie.
Yeah.
And now we're like locked in. We're hustling.
This is probably going to be a really short episode, so you're welcome, guys. A
5-minute
short special.
pod. Woo.
Watch it be fucking 3 hours. Let's see what happens.
After the Nissaman one, I'm limiting it. I'm sorry, that was too fucking long.
Oh my god, did anybody watch our Nissaman episode? It's like 2.5 hours.
It was 2 hours.
Oh, okay, there we go. See, you're not even
I
as
cut
long as I
half
thought
an
it
hour
was.
off it. And then at one point, I was literally just shaving off every tiny pause I could find. And
So
it still wasn't enough.
Non-stop talking. So if you like that, check it out. But for now, listen to us talk about Black Sheep.
Yes.
Okay, so with this film, we open up on a field of sheep being herded
Yes.
by a
By
older
a family.
man and some kids on some quad bikes.
Yes. And there's very whimsical music playing.
Yeah, and there's a sort of a orange-yellow filter over the entire scene, which I really liked. It was like visually striking for like
Yeah.
the beginning of a film.
It's very nostalgic. And the scenery is very beautiful. I guess because obviously they're shooting in New Zealand, so like
Yeah.
it's going to make it look amazing.
I love the word nostalgic too, because this is currently a flashback, as we'll see.
Yeah. We didn't even realise we were in a flashback.
Yeah, but looking back at it, it was a perfect way to distinguish it from the main storyline.
Yeah. And you see there's like a main kid who's being called out to all the time, Henry.
Yeah.
And then
He's
there's
quite young.
Yeah. And then there's a slightly older kid called Angus who's watching this whole thing. He's got like a leg brace thing on.
Yeah.
I presume it's because he's injured or possibly like, I don't know, some kind of abnormality in his leg.
Yeah.
But we never really, because it doesn't come up again.
No, it doesn't. Unless
just
it does,
there.
and we just stupid him.
Maybe.
But he seems like a moody cunt, you know.
He's just grumbling this whole time.
Little kid Henry looks very innocent. Angus gives off like a miserable teen who like kills frogs.
That's not far from the truth.
Because what we see is Angus, our moody teen, sneaks off away from sort of the main sheep herding and to a sheep that's left all on its own, tied to a peg. So this seems like a domestic sheep. Like
It's a pet sheep as
Yeah.
opposed to the food sheep.
And he begins reciting sort of like a nursery rhyme / poem.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like Mary Had a Little Lamb, except it's like Henry had a little sheep called Dudley.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sheep's name is Dudley.
But Henry had, so it belongs to Henry. It's Henry's pet sheep.
Yeah.
And then we see he's wielding an axe, and when he finishes his little poem,
It cuts to black when he chops down.
swings the axe, and it cuts to black.
Yeah.
Presuming that he killed the sheep.
Yeah.
Cut to Henry, the little boy who owns the sheep, running around calling for his sheep.
Yeah, he's finished his herding, so now he's gone home to look for Dudley, and he can't find him anywhere.
He thinks he's run away because he's no longer tied to his peg.
Yeah. And then he goes into a shed, and
It's a very spooky scene.
it's very
The
spooky.
shed's very dark, even though it's like, middle of the day. And he's walking into it, and you think, is there a monster that's going to jump out at him?
Yeah.
But then what we do see is a sort of skinned sheep carcass falls from the ceiling, bleeding,
Terrifying.
and it terrifies the little boy. And then a sheep monster from behind the carcass emerges from the darkness and sort of growls at him.
Yeah, he scares the shit out of him. Turns out it's his brother wearing the sheep that he just killed.
And it is gruesome. He's underneath the skin, and it is fleshy. There is
Still
blood
blood
pouring down his face into his own mouth. This kid is not okay.
That's not like a regular teen prank. That is just like horrible.
It is like psychopathic.
It's
It's
disgusting.
actually crazy.
It's psychological torture. It's just like, classic brothers psychologically torturing their siblings.
It's not okay. And then, was it his mother or was it with the old lady?
I think it was Mrs. Meg who is the housekeeper, and she comes in and she says, "Boys, I've something to tell you. Your father's been in an accident." What a way to find out your dad is dead.
Yeah.
Your brother's still in a fucking dead sheep, and you get to listen about how your dad is now dead.
But she says it. She sees the boy wearing the sheep carcass, this absolutely horrific sight, and she just is unfazed. She's like, "Hey boys, come on, stop messing around. This is serious. We got to talk." Like, what?
She's unfazed this entire movie.
To be honest, she is, and we find out later on sort of why. It's because she's very much used to like dead animals and their innards.
Yeah. Too used to them, I guess. You should not be used to people wearing them around, like blood pouring off of them.
I'm sorry, like if that was in my family or a family I was associated with, and I saw a little kid doing that, I would kill him because I know exactly what he's about to become.
You knew that from that very first scene.
Yeah, well, actually, if he was my child, if he wasn't, and I was just a housekeeper for them, I'd just be gone. You think I'm looking after them?
No, psychopathic kid. What? Who's gonna? Fine.
It always starts with animals.
Yeah. Who's he gonna skin next? Me? Absolutely not.
No, you ain't wearing me.
No.
This designer.
This designer skin.
You couldn't afford it. That's all I'm saying. Purr, you heard me.
What? The thing is, and his older brother's called Angus, and he's awful this entire movie. I just want to say that. The entire movie.
Oh, just atrocious, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But this is the end of the flashback because we cut to a taxi that is currently stuck in
a herd of sheep.
A herd of sheep on a farm road.
And Henry's in this taxi. He is now older, and he's having a panic attack.
Yeah, in the back of the taxi, like full on freaking out because he now has a phobia of sheep. I wonder why.
I wonder why. I can't blame him, to be honest. If that happened to me, I'd probably be scared of sheep too.
I'd be scared of everything.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? It's so sad. And that's when the taxi driver sort of makes fun of him. And he's like, "Oh, city boy." And he's like, "Actually, I grew up on these lands." And he's like, "Oh," shocked because he's like, can't even handle sheep.
Yeah.
But little does he fucking know. Little does he know.
Oh, and then we see a couple who are sneaking onto the farm at the same time as Henry is kind of driving there.
Yeah. So it's like they're heading towards the same spot.
Yeah. It's this like hippie couple called Grant and Experience.
And we do hear Experience, the hippie girl.
I called her EXP in my notes. Like a Pokemon.
I love that that's the way you see people. But no, she sort of says to the male hippie, she says, "Is this going to be like the salmon farm?" Which sort of implies, oh, these are sort of like animal rights activists that seem to invade on animal farms.
To protest inhumane practices.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. And he's kind of like a little bit off the wall, this guy, Grant. He's very much like, my way or the highway. Like, no, everything's going to be fine. Just have to follow my lead kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she's a little bit more cautious and more like, maybe we should like, you know what I mean, be a bit more like wary of where we are.
Yeah. He may be a hippie, he may be progressive, but he's still a man, basically. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Amen.
Sorry, that was awful.
Cut back to Henry, who's now escaped the herd of sheep in
No,
the taxi.
we get to see Angus first. He flies in on a fucking plane.
That's really important, actually.
Yeah. Angus flies a plane and lands in his field.
We don't know it's Angus, though.
No, we don't. Not at first.
No,
But-
because we don't know how ugly Angus grew up. I mean, wait, sorry, spoiler that. Damn. We didn't know it was Angus.
Until a few scenes later, yeah.
A farmer lands in his little plane. That's really important. Remember that.
And then it cuts back to Henry arriving at the farm. And then he says to the cabbie, he's like, look, will you just wait for me here? And the cabbie's like, yes, your money, I guess.
Which shows that he's not going to be staying long.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be there anymore. He just kind of wants to deal with it and go.
Yeah.
But we don't know why he's there yet.
But he enters this big farmhouse. It's very beautiful. And it's very dark inside. He walks around like, hello, hello. It's a little creepy. It's a little suspenseful.
Yeah.
And then he walks into sort of an office, a study, and he's looking through things when he hears a sort of shotgun being
He gets a shotgun put to the back of his head and
double barrel,
like a big ass one.
and then a woman's voice says, unless you want a pair of nostrils on the back of your head, you better not move.
Yeah. And he just smiles. He's like, Mrs. Meg.
Mrs. Meg.
Mrs. Meg.
Oh, you crazy cow.
Classic Mrs. Meg.
And he turns his head slowly and she realizes it's Henry and she says, oh, Henry.
Oh my God.
You've come home.
And she's like, don't worry, I haven't shot anyone since Christmas. Honestly, you know what? She's such a queen. She's my favorite character in this movie, I think.
I do like her. She's very much unfazed.
Yeah.
It goes to show sometimes in horror films, the best chance you have is just staying indoors. Just stay home.
Just chill out.
Stay home.
Accept
and
everything and just chill out.
You'll be fine. That's not always the case, actually. That's a terrible rule.
Do it anyway.
Do it anyway, because at least if you die, you'll be comfortable.
You'll be chill. Then we get to see Angus. He's rehearsing for a big speech. And we don't exactly know what the speech is for, but it's supposed to be something to announce something.
Yeah.
He's also the ugliest brother. Sorry.
He's so ugly. Yeah, so chairs laid out.
Not saying the actor themselves is awful looking. It's just the way they've been styled in this movie is bad.
You know what? Yeah, let's say that because that's the right thing to say. Smart, you're so smart.
I don't want to get cancelled for cyberbullying an actor in a shitty fucking zombie sheep movie.
To be honest, our judgment was clouded because he's such an evil cunt.
That's true. It's there's this psychological thing. It's the less you like someone, the uglier they look at you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe if he was the hero, we'd like him.
Maybe if we saw him in something else as the hero or a nice guy or whatever, we'd be like, oh my God, he's so fit.
Do you think that all of our attraction is that subjective? Do you think we can find anyone attractive in the right light?
I think if you're looking more than surface level, yes. But if you're one of those people who grope statues' boobs of famous female activists, then no.
Even if they're really hot? Physically?
The statues or the villains?
Both. The villains, girl.
Listen, I'm not immune to this. I found villains attractive in loads of movies.
Damn.
Including on this podcast.
You are right, though. They are creeps for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Although
then...
you did make a boob snowman once and do the same thing.
Once? I made boob snowman a lot.
Snow woman. Not even snow women are safe. Wow. Think about that, guys.
I made a snow person with boobs once, and then these kids hopped my grandparents' fence and destroyed it. And my grandma, she looked out the window, she like, get the fuck off my land!
All that was left was 2 mounds in the snow.
Actually, no, they didn't get that far, but I did have to put the boobs back on.
Relatable. Relatable. That's a snow woman boob job. That's okay. That's okay. You should just added top surgery scars.
I was very young. I didn't know what top surgery was.
Somewhere inside you did.
Shut up.
Let's not talk about that.
So then we get a conversation between Henry and Angus. They're in the office. And Henry's like, well, Angus goes, why are you here? And he goes, well, because my therapist told me it would be good because I haven't been here since since the accident, and that I should like resolve my trauma, basically.
Yeah.
And then fucking Angus is like, therapy.
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 Why solve
twat.
your own trauma when you can cause other people trauma?
What? Why talk to someone about your feelings?
Gross. Feelings.
Feelings.
I just like animals. A lot.
A lot, yeah. Oh, he doesn't even call himself a farmer anymore. He calls himself an agricultural scientist.
Yeah. Fucking pathetic.
Unless you are actually an agricultural scientist, don't call yourself that.
Yeah. You just own the agricultural land and animals of which the scientists are studying.
You just own a farm and a lab.
Yeah. It's always the money men that want to be like the actual smart people.
Yeah.
Like we said
We're
in our
talking
last
about
episode.
Musk.
Oh!
Fuck you. And it's still called Twitter.
You never used Twitter.
I don't.
Why are you so mad?
I will call Twitter X when he calls his daughter Vivian. That's all I have to say.
Oh! I'm not in this. Listen,
You agree.
Musk,
You agree.
I love
No,
you.
you don't.
You so sexy. I'm here for you. Go, Elon Musk. Anyway. I'm just keeping us safe. You're welcome. Okay. The next scene, we cut back. Stop. We cut back to the hippies. The hippies are casing out another part of the farm that has a sort of lab.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of scientists in lab coats coming out of the lab into a truck and loading it up with canisters. And they're carrying hazardous waste boxes.
Yeah.
They're taking pictures of this. Experience, she's taking pictures of it.
For evidence, because she's actually there to do her job.
Yeah. But what's his name?
Grant.
Grant, you know, being the man that he is, decides, I'm a hero. So he decides to sneak over, jump the fence, and open up the hazard box that was left unattended. And he takes out a canister of brown liquid and runs backwards. He takes it back to Experience, but the scientists start chasing them, so they run into the woods.
Yeah. And while they're hiding, Experience is like, hey, Grant, about this relationship. Which is really funny. She's trying to break up with him while they're running from the scientist. He doesn't catch on at all.
No.
And then they have to run through the woods and they get separated.
Yeah.
And Grant falls over and smashes the jar.
So yeah, like I said, he fell on his face.
Smashes the jar.
And while he's sort of like reeling from the fall, he lifts his head. He's flat on his stomach. And on his back, we suddenly see this fetus-looking lamb that's like covered in gunk with very weird teeth making very unusual noises. And it lifts its head and all of a sudden snaps his head back down and bites his ear.
Yeah.
Immediately he screams and he's like running around with this lamb hanging off of his earlobe, which starts to stretch like crazy. Very
Flesh is very stretchy in this movie.
flesh. It's gross.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable.
And he kind of slams himself into a tree a few times. And I'm just like, use your hands. Use your hands.
He's hurting himself more than he's hurting the fucking creature.
Yeah.
And eventually he just grabs the little creature and he rips his own earlobe off.
Which is what you should have done in the beginning.
Yeah. And then he throws it onto the floor and it sort of like reaves in pain and slinks away.
Yeah, crawls off. And then it cuts back to Angus and Henry. And basically Henry's like, you chucked out all Dad's stuff. Like, what are you even doing anymore? Like, what's going on? And Angus basically, he goes on his whole thing about how he needs to modernize and how all farmers are the same and they need to blah, 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 blah. And he's like a modern man now. And, you know what I mean? All this kind of shit.
Yeah.
He buys out Henry's share of the farm. And obviously Henry doesn't want to be there because he's a sheep phobia now.
Yeah, so he'd rather just sell and move on.
Yeah. Which is fair enough. I think I wouldn't probably not want to go back there either. But at the same time, like, isn't there like a little nostalgia or something? Which I guess we do see later on. And then Henry ends the conversation with Angus, goes into the kitchen and speaks to Mrs. Meg. And she's like, are you not staying for rabbit pie? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Why don't you stay for
I will
longer?
say there's a shot here when he walks into the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's a close-up of the rabbit being cut open and the innards, and the blood is very dark and the organs are very gruesome.
Yeah. The food in this movie does not look good.
No, it's very much
I think it's...
raw, zombie, guttery,
Yeah.
gross innards.
It's kind of like every time meat is shown in this movie, it's kind of shown as this like disgusting, like visceral thing.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. It is an organ, but the filmmakers don't make any attempt to make it look appealing at all.
No.
And Mrs. Meggs, she attempts to give Angus the golden shears, which is this like trophy that his dad had won a few years running, and she said, "Your dad always said you were a natural too." It kind of comes across as if like Henry was the kind of golden child in this family, like the favorite. That's kind of what I got from it, especially because it reminded me of the beginning where the boy was having so much fun with his family and Angus was kind of just like seething in the corner.
Yeah.
But
I think it might have been because Angus couldn't, because we already see in the opening scene that Angus couldn't take part. Maybe that was because of the brace he had in his leg. He couldn't, join in
and he
with
felt
the herding.
isolated.
Exactly.
Fair enough, yeah.
Whereas we have this Henry who's like, oh, he's a natural.
Yeah, because he's able-bodied, basically.
Which explain why Angus did what he did.
I don't think it explains all of it.
No, definitely not. But I can imagine that's his reason. That's his reason.
We'll tell you what he did later, because it's a big reveal. But then...
Well, I meant also what he did in the beginning when he cut up the sheep and scared his little brother.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like
yeah.
jealousy.
Jealousy, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Then Mrs. Meg said, "Look, I've called the farm manager. He's gonna come down and take you up to the spot, basically the spot his dad died, because their region is very mountainous and there's like huge cliffs everywhere, basically. And he's like, I haven't gone up there since the accident. And she says, I know, and that's why you're going.
Yeah, that's the point.
And then the manager comes in.
The farm manager comes in and he is fit.
He's a fitty. I'm sorry, he is. His name is Tucker, and he actually knows them from childhood, I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, he is fit. I have him as hot farm manager for half of this because we didn't know his name.
But his name is Tucker.
Tucker, yeah.
But if you hear hot manager, you know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Do you like a farm man?
Do I like a farm man?
I mean, obviously he's got to be attractive to you anyway, but like, does him being a farm man make him a little extra? Ooh.
I don't think it makes him more attractive than any other like person, but I do think that like there's like something to say about knowing how to care for the land, knowing how to care for animals is quite cool.
Yeah.
And like it's quite rugged when you're like on a four-wheeler and herding sheep and shit.
Yeah. I will say there's definitely some ethical questions, but as long as we're ethically okay, then I don't know. It's not nice about it. I don't know.
Something safe about it.
I did go on a date with someone who, well, their parents owned a farm, but they lived on a farm and worked on a farm.
Yeah.
And all I can remember is they like just smelled like mud, but like in a good way.
Fair enough. In Denmark, we have a dating show about farmers who want to have wives.
Oh, is it called like Farmer Wives?
It's something cool like that, yeah. And then my granddad, he didn't remember what the name of the show was once. He was just like, oh, let's watch Horny Farmers. And then ever since then, we've been calling it, oh, look, there's Horny Farmers on TV.
I would watch that. The real farm wives of... Where are they?
Fucking Aalborg.
Come on, tell me that's not iconic.
I don't think it's farmers in that city, but there you go.
There you go.
So it cuts back to the sheep fetus, and he's crawling into basically where all the sheep are kept in the fields. Wow. And he kind of bleats, and it kind of calls a sheep over, really.
Yeah. A little mama sheep comes over like, oh, what's this?
What's going on here?
Gets curious, starts to sniff its face, and then it
gets bitten.
Bites the sheep's face. And the sheep's like, damn, okay.
Rude.
I was trying to help you. Die your own, bitch. Yeah. It's sort of the energy in the sheep's face. It's hard to read, but I think she gave a great performance.
I think so.
Yeah, the sheep
underrated
are really, really good actors in this.
Honestly, they should be more.
Yeah, I believe so.
And then we cut back to... Then we cut back to them in the car. It's Henry and Tucker, and they're having a conversation, and Tucker's like, what are you doing in the city? And he's like, oh yeah, I work in IT. And he said, oh, male stripper. Got it. I don't know, I found that funny.
You found that funny?
I did.
I can tell.
Because I told you I found it funny.
Oh, that's how I can tell.
You're very perceptive.
Girl, move on.
But the thing is a sheep gets in the middle of the road, and Tucker's like, "Oh, why don't you show us what you made of? You know, see if you've still got it, right?" And obviously Henry's like, "Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, totally. I still got it.
Totally got it." And Tucker is trying to like scare this sheep off, going like, you know what I mean, like normal, right?
Just get out of the way.
Yeah. And then Henry comes out the car and like follows him and is like, and then they turn around and Experience has taken the shotgun from their car and is sticking them up.
Well, actually, before that, Tucker notices that the sheep that he's trying to scare off has a big bite on its face.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "What happened to you?"
Yeah. What's going on with you?
Yeah. And that's when Experience pulls the rifle on them.
Yeah. And it's funny because Tucker's like literally like picking up the sheep as she's doing this, and she's like, "Put your hands up!" And he like does this and drops the sheep, and the sheep just runs off. No, not all the humor in this movie works for me. I'll say that much, because I feel like some scenes I just didn't get it, but some of the humor gets to me a little bit.
I laughed a few times. I thought it was very funny.
Yeah.
It's gently fun.
Yeah.
In a way that I think is beneficial to horror.
Yeah, definitely. And then it cuts to the hippie man, which, because I didn't know their names at this point. It's Grant, and he is in the woods, and he eats a bunny.
Yeah, his face has sort of started to look a little different. His teeth have changed.
Yeah.
And his eyes look maybe wider and darker. It's very hard to tell because it's quite dark in the forest. And he's acting very unusual, and that's when he picks up the little bunny.
He's having like a mental health crisis over this because he's like, "Oh my god, I don't want to eat meat. You're so cute."
And he's like petting
stroking it. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he bites its neck, which again, the flesh on the bunny's neck was really stretchy.
Yeah.
It was a stretchy, snappy flesh.
Delicious.
Very, very distinct style of gore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder who did the gore. I should look that up after this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it cuts back to the stick up, and they're holding their hands up, and she's like, "Who are you? Like, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm Henry Oldfield." And she's like, "I should have known you were an Oldfield. You have a selfish aura."
Ooh.
A selfish aura? Fuck you.
Rude.
And then Tucker tricks the girl. He goes, "You know the safety's off, right?" And he went, what? And then she was trying to like adjust it, and he's like, "Oh, let me do it." And he just takes the gun from her.
She hands it to him, and he takes it off, and he goes to hand it back. She's like, "Oh, great." And he like pulls it back, and he's like, "Nah." He's like, "Could you imagine?"
You really thought that?
Honestly, he had me convinced. He was so charming. I thought he was going to give it back. I was like, "Oh, okay." Thank you.
Would I have given him the gun? Maybe.
I would have. Oh, could you show me? Like,
Could you show
preferably
me?
from behind with your hands over mine. I just can't find it. Where's the safety you speak of? Up and down, down and up and down, up and down, up and down.
Give me lewd thoughts, woman. Impure. Let's spray you with water. And then we cut to some really bad looking spaghetti. It doesn't even have meat in it. It's just like tomato sauce.
It's food that looks really gross. It definitely doesn't look as graphic as other food because it's just spaghetti. But even the spaghetti has an unusual quality to the redness of the sauce, to the texture of like...
It looks like flesh.
Yeah, it's very, very unsettling.
Disgusting. So the guy's making spaghetti, and then he hears something at the door, and he goes to answer the door. And then does he...
Yeah, he answers the door off camera.
Yeah.
And we just hear him screaming in pain.
Yeah.
That's it. We're implying he's been attacked.
We don't know by what just yet. And then they notice the smoke, right? And they're like, "Well, we have to go and find what's causing the smoke, right?" So Henry, Tucker, and Experience, they go in the car and they look at... They go to the house and they find the smoke.
Yeah, and the smoke is being caused by the spaghetti, which is now burnt into charcoal.
Yeah. And the house is covered in blood. There's blood everywhere. And you know what Experience says? She says, "Oh."
And they're like, What?
The feng shui in here is awful. There is blood everywhere, and that's what you're saying?
Well, she's right. God, terrible. I will say, when it comes to hippie characters like this in horror films, I feel like there's usually two types of humor that they do with these self-righteous characters who have strong morals. Is that either when shit goes down, they completely abandon their morals, and the humor is this fact that it's like, oh, we all want to be vegan and liberal till, you know, the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Or they do what this film did, which is that they double down on their morals.
Yeah.
And regardless of what kind of situation they're in, their belief system comes first, which I think could still be funny. And even though they're still making fun of, obviously, like someone who just like has progressive views, and some of the jokes are a little overdone.
Boomerish.
Yeah. I do prefer seeing someone like that who actually sticks to their morals, because it's
Well, it can be funny in
who
certain
they are
situations.
and what they believe.
Yeah, and it can be funny.
And
Like,
it's
it can
still
be made funny. Definitely.
It doesn't have to be this thing of like, oh, see, as soon as like the situation isn't like perfect, you're no longer like so liberal and progressive.
Yeah.
Like, she still is,
Yeah, it's good.
even if it's annoying.
It is annoying, but the thing is, it's like not all of the jokes work, but some of them, especially with her character, do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Then they look down a hallway, and there's the evil sheep. Sorry, the turned sheep, infected sheep, that is like staring them down in this hallway.
Which they don't know that it's necessarily terrible yet. I mean, don't get me wrong, Henry's terrified of it because he's already scared of sheep, which he's right to. But then the sheep...
The sheep charges them, and Henry pulls them all into a room, and they're like, what the hell are you doing? It's just a sheep, it's just a sheep. And the sheep is banging up against the door.
They lock the door, they put a cabinet up against it. And that's when he says that he has like a phobia of sheep.
He says, I have a phobia of this exact thing happening right now.
He says, I have a completely irrational fear of this very real thing that's happening.
Yeah. And they're just like, well, like, we have to get out of here because now we're trapped, you know?
Yeah.
And then they discover the dead body of the man who was in there.
Yeah, Experience finds it and she screams. His throat has been sort of like completely gouged out.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's when the sheep...
He hears Johnny's the door. The sheep's head goes through the door.
Smashes through.
Yeah. And Tucker shoots it in the head.
Johnny.
And Tucker shoots the sheep
in the head.
And they're like, okay.
And the head just like gets blasted back out through the hole.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, now we've dealt with it, we can go. And then the sheep comes back for a second one. And they're like, oh my gosh, shoot it again.
Its head is bleeding. It's half in bits, but it's back through the door.
Yeah. And he shoots it again and then it's dead. And then they're like, right, we gotta leave, right? We gotta tell someone about this crazy sheep. And they...
So they go out to the front of this little shack with the smoke that
they're surrounded by sheep.
Yeah.
Surrounded.
But the sheep are just chilling and grazing.
They seem to be normal sheep, these ones. Yeah. And
but they're sus of them because they're like, what the hell was wrong with that one?
Yeah.
Although Henry obviously is sus of them because he's sus of every sheep.
Yeah. And they do this thing where it's like a spiritual walk through where he like experiences like, you are a tree. Feel the energy go through the floor into your chakras. And he's like, it's actually working on him.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a fun scene because he's like kind of slowly getting calmed down. He's walking through these sheep. And then Tucker just beeps the horn and goes, get in the fucking car.
It's very cute though. The Experience coached him through the crowd of shit. I thought it was cute.
I bought it, you know, like they're kind of like,
yeah.
He thought she was cute and like it helped him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sweet. And it comes back up.
It does, which is very nice.
But yeah, they jump on the truck.
Yes.
On the back of it.
They do. They jump on the back of it because a sheep is chasing them.
So they get on the back of the truck. And he completely like drives off. And that's when the sheep from earlier that they had found with the bite on the mouth, they had left in the front of the truck. And as Tucker is driving, that sheep finally turns into, you know, zombie sheep.
Zombie sheep.
And it attacks Tucker while he's trying to drive.
Yeah.
And obviously he's going crazy, like with the steering wheel while trying to fight the sheep off.
Yeah. There's this kind of bit with a chainsaw where it's like, oh, you're revving the chainsaw. It's not working. Is it turned on? Oh, yeah, it's not. Have you done this? Have you done that? And then he like when he finally turns it on, he drops it.
Oh, it's very funny.
Because I didn't like that joke.
Because you barely saw it. You didn't even see it. You weren't looking at the screen when it happened.
I was taking my notes.
He's like pulling the trigger on it, and it like, because Henry just looks so useless. He's like so bad at all this farm stuff.
Yeah.
And he turns it on, and he pulls the trigger, and it finally starts, and he seems very triumphant. But it's the power of the chainsaw finally turning on that he can't handle, and it makes his arms fling upwards, and he throws it off the back of the truck, and it goes tumbling away. I was like, He's so fucking useless.
Yeah. And then Tucker just decides to stomp on that sheep. He like manages to get it under his boot.
Yeah, he starts tagging it.
Yeah.
Mind you,
The sheep does bite his boot.
yeah, the sheep actually puts its head down while he's like pushing on the the gas.
Yeah.
And starts biting his rubber boot, but luckily it's a very thick rubber boot,
It's a
so
gum boot.
he's gonna be okay.
Mm.
Tucker realizes that like he's not gonna be able to stop the sheep, so he climbs out of the driver's seat into the back with Henry and Experience.
There's this shot of the sheep, and it looks like it's driving.
Yeah, they're all in the back of the truck, so I'm like,
Who's driving the car?
And it goes, and the sheep is just behind the wheel, like, man.
And then they jump up the back of the car.
And then that's when we see the truck goes off the cliff, and there's a very classic you've definitely seen it before. There's a very classic slow motion shot of the truck falling off of the cliff slowly, hitting off of every rock, with the little sheep, which I imagine was just like a sheep coat in the front seat, bouncing around with the little bah, bah, the slow-mo bah, into its own death. It completely gets totaled and hits the bottom of the cliff.
Oh my god. And then we find out that that's where his dad died.
That's not funny.
It's not, but it's really funny that a sheep drove a car off a cliff in the same spot as dad died.
Ma.
Now they're in the afterlife together. Sorry.
That thing is in hell. They check in on Tucker, as they're like reeling from like what they just survived.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm fine. Luckily, my rubber boot saved me.
Yeah. And then they plan to go back to the house, because they need to tell people, and that's the only place they have. There's a phone there because what's his face? Henry's phone was in the car, and they're like, what? There's only 50,000 sheep in front of us.
Yeah. I mean, they actually turn around and there's like a sheep right next to them, and that they all get scared because they're like, is it a normal sheep or is it one of those?
Is it a feral sheep? Yeah.
And then the sheep goes
farts
and like, oh, it's a normal sheep.
Because that's a bad sheep.
But then that's when Experience goes, it's not over yet because sheep farts actually contain methane, and they're like the number one contributor to like why the global
greenhouse
warming.
gases. And then Henry goes, what do we do? And then she goes, well, and then he was like, I meant about getting to the house.
She's like, well, we can decrease in our carbon emission. And he's like, no, I meant about getting to the house. I meant about
we're gonna die here.
And this is what I mean about her like doubling down on her beliefs, like literal zombie sheep, like killing them. And she's like,
we should talk about greenhouse gases.
She keeps thinking, she keeps prioritizing those things.
Yeah.
Or like putting them on an equal plane.
Yeah.
As much as, there's terrible things happening right in front of me, it is just as bad or even less than this terrible big picture, which I don't know, I respect, but also is very funny.
Yeah. It cuts back to the house. We find out the cabbie has fallen asleep in the cab, and the like dollar amount on his like counter is like 1,000 now. And the scientists are now trying to clean up basically all of the mess that the hippie guy had left there.
And we see they have like a big pit, like a huge hole in the ground that's been fenced off around, and they're throwing all the hazardous waste in there.
Yeah.
And the scientist that does so turns around.
And there's a sheep.
And there's 2 sheep there. And he doesn't know that the sheep are evil, so he's just sort of like, oh, shoo.
Yeah.
But then a zombie sheep from behind him attacks him in the butt.
His ass gets eaten by a zombie sheep.
He got his ass ate.
By a zombie sheep.
But the point is he got his ass ate.
By a zombie sheep.
A win is a win. Oh.
Any hole is a goal.
I hate us. I just really do. I really do.
Why?
Why?
We're really funny.
Why not?
Then we cut back to Grant, and he's kind of like an aware sheep now. Like he's turning into a sheep.
Yeah, it's like his face is like
all fucked.
Mildly. I mean, to be fair, he doesn't look like a sheep yet.
No.
But his face is all purple, and like it's like his bone structure is almost changing on the right side of his face.
He looks fucked.
He looks really bad.
And
but Angus
drives up.
driving in the same area,
Yeah.
and he bumps into
Grant.
And he sort of gets out of his car like, what are you doing, like, creep? That's when Grant is like, you're Angus
Oldfield.
You're evil, what you do is terrible, I'm gonna get you, like, the authorities are gonna know about you. And that's, and Angus just like reads him for filth and is like,
Yeah, he's like, get the fuck off my land, you
no life,
bitch. No life, no bitches.
and
no
that's when he
anything.
points at him.
He points his
And
finger
this
at him.
really triggers Grant, and then
Yeah.
Grant leans down and
Bites his hand.
Angus's hand, like, and it's a big.
Yeah, it's a big
Bite
ass
mark.
fucking bike, and it's like, what the fuck
And
are you
Angus
doing?
like, what the fuck, you creep? And then he gets back in his car and drives back.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd be freaked out too.
Yeah, some
Why-
weird, filthy looking, like, disease-ridden
Hippie.
hippie bitch is like just bit my hand. Mm-mm.
No, I'm getting tested. I'm getting shots. And then we discover that Tucker's foot hurts, and so he sits down and takes his boot off. He has a hoof.
He has a hoof, and he's got a bite mark right on like the top of the hoof that's bleeding.
Yeah.
So the sheep had gotten through,
Yeah.
and now his foot had transformed into a sheep hoof.
Oh.
But it was kind of cute because the white like fur was so like newborn fur, like it was so soft and like pure and clean. It was a really cute hoof.
I'm not a feet guy myself, so. Or a hoof guy either.
Neither am I.
Sounds like you are.
It just looked like a lamb's foot. It was really cute.
Sounds like you are. Then they arrive at the lab, and they had a dog with them this whole time. Just by the way, we didn't realize this. And they send the dog off away, into the woods to keep him safe, whilst they go and hide in the lab.
I'm so reacting to what you just said. Called me.
You're a foot guy.
I'm not.
Yeah, you are. You're a hoof guy.
That's cuter at least. No, I'm not a hoof person. I like toe beans.
Toe.
Do you like toe beans?
Well, on an animal, yeah, like they're very cute on a
On
cat.
kitties.
Yeah, they're cute.
The beans. Okay, let's not talk about cats because
No, we're talking about sheep and hoofs.
Meh.
You been bitten by anything recently?
I think so. I never tell. Yeah. I'll never been by insects though. Never an animal.
Maybe the insect was bitten by a sheep.
I'm gonna be aware insect. Oh my god, no, that was last episode.
That was last episode. So they jump into the lab, and they send the dog away. And in the lab, they find a like suspended sheep carcass with no skin, and its heart, like its chest cavity is chopped open.
Yeah, it's like almost been like spatchcocked.
Yeah, and its heart is still beating.
Yeah, and it's got all these wires and cables on it.
Yeah.
Like it's being monitored.
Yeah, and they go closer to it, and it like talks, like it goes, and it like lashes out at them. It tries to bite them. It doesn't work.
So Tucker lifts up the rifle like to put it out of its misery.
Yeah.
Because it's like feel fucking bad for it.
Like, yeah, honestly, do you know what? You said what you want, like, about farmers, but when they see an animal, like, that's hurting and that should be better off, like, dead, they will just kill it.
Yeah, and then eat it.
Yeah.
But the scientists walk in before they're able to shoot it and sort of catch him in the act.
Yeah. With Angus.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They sort of have back and forth where
Yeah.
Henry's like, oh, the sheep are going crazy. Angus is like, no, they're not.
you don't understand. You don't understand.
You're just scared of them.
Yeah.
And then he's like, Tucker, show them your foot. And that's when the scientist
And
says,
then, she's still got the rifle at this point, and he puts down the gun to show them his hoof, and then they take the gun and they also needle Tucker in the neck.
yeah, the scientist injects him with something that puts him to sleep.
Yeah, he passes out. He's like,
and Angus takes the gun.
yeah, and now Angus has all the power, and sends them running basically.
Yeah. And Henry and Experience run outside, but there's obviously a bunch of sheep.
Yeah.
So they run into next to the big hole of
It's kind of
hazard
fenced
waste.
in, so they're running into that like pen bit, then right next to the hole.
So they're fenced in now by this fence
Yeah.
that I mentioned earlier because I knew it would come up.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And then they had this whole thing where
The sheep are attacking and they're shoving their heads through the fence.
and Henry is like, no deal, and he like rips the fucking check up, although
because
he doesn't.
Angus has come out with his rifle to watch them.
Yeah, although he doesn't rip it actually properly, he just kind of chucks it on the ground, and I was like, is that gonna come up again or what? 'Cause
Yeah.
he didn't destroy it.
He's like, you signed the contract, it's done anyway.
Like, yeah.
Although you do question at this point because all of the sheep during this conversation are like ramming their heads to the fence, trying their best to like eat Experience and Henry. And yet Angus is stood right behind them with the rifle and then not paying him any mind.
They don't give a shit about him.
Yeah.
And then they kind of fall through the hole because they kind of slip, and Henry's kind of grappling on the side. Experience is trying to hold him up, and he's like, Angus, help me, and Angus just goes, it's a farm. Accidents happen.
Like I said, that's the thing about farms.
This is in a New
Accidents
Zealand
happen.
accent.
We obviously, but I like my accent. That's the thing about farms. Accidents happen.
Eggs. That's how the New Zealanders say eggs. Eggs.
Eggs.
Eggs.
Eggs.
Egg.
Why do we say eggs? We're talking about sheep, not chickens.
I know, but I just thought I love that accent because it's so cute. I just
Anyway, the point is they fall into the giant hole.
yeah, and it's full of like viscera. It's like there's like a pile of corpses and carcasses, and they're covered in blood, and it's disgusting. And my question is if the sheep were trying to get through the fence this whole time, wouldn't any of them have gotten through the fence and just jumped in after them? Although I guess they haven't got through the fence yet.
No, I just think that's weirdly against their instincts to jump into a giant hole.
You think sheep don't like holes?
Well, I think they have like a natural instinct that's like, oh, if I go into that big hole, I'll die.
Fair enough. I didn't
Surely,
know.
'cause that's something's got to keep them alive.
I guess so, but they're zombie sheep now.
I guess.
I don't know.
But you know what? What I'm saying is, I think that with animals like that, those little instincts to like not do things like fall off of large like cliffs and holes is like an instinct that's so deeply baked into them, just as much as now their instinct to kill.
Okay.
So it's a sort of mindless drive that's just as unconscious.
Fair enough. Okay.
I'm not an agricultural scientist like Angus. I don't know these things. I can only guess.
I don't know if you want to be an agricultural scientist like Angus.
No.
What we find out about him later.
Oh. No, he's more like you. Yeah. Yeah.
Shut up, hoof guy. So now
you're a hoe guy.
I do like me some hoes.
No, hole. Loomis, any hole is a go.
Any hole
I
is
guess
a
that
go.
means human or none. Anyway.
Name one human that has hoofs.
Aetherians.
The fuck is that?
Aetherians.
Okay.
If you know, you know. Google it.
So then, Experience decides that she hates the smell so much and she needs some light, so she's gonna do some aromatherapy. So she lights a candle.
Yeah, she pulls a candle out of her bag and lights it, which, again, it's one of those things where the actual function of what she did
Is useful.
is useful because now they can see.
Yeah.
But the reason why she did it,
It's so funny.
she doesn't have her priorities straight. Instead of, oh, let me light this candle so that we can actually see down here, it's like, I need the smell. I just need to like calm down.
My chakras need to be balanced.
Which he's like, fuck that, but thank you. Snatches the candle from her.
Yeah.
And he's like, and she's like, what are you doing? He's like, this is a
cave system.
a cave system. There's a similar one back at like, you know, near the house or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe this leads to that one. So they head down the dark
thing.
cave.
So
I will say it does cut to a shot of Angus, and he's confiding in a sheep.
Yeah.
Which is like not that weird to
But
like
we
talk
don't
to
get
an
to
animal.
see this sheep because it's all like penned up and like in a special
it's
box.
in a little crate. But
Yeah.
he's confiding in it like it's an emotional companion. It's not that unusual to confide in an animal, but it does linger in a way that's a bit like
Undesirable.
yeah, he's weirdly close to this. It almost makes you think like, can he understand this sheep? It felt on a level that was further than just confiding in a pet.
Yeah, and then we also get to see loads of sheep eating like people.
Yeah, just fully just ramming up. And we don't know who any of these people are, by the way.
No.
It's just assumed to be people on nearby farms,
People in the area
who work nearby, live nearby, etc.
Yeah.
Just these like random bodies popping up, dying, or people who were on their way to see this like big talk that's happening later.
Yeah.
Big announcement.
And then we come back to the scientists who are now looking at Tucker's hoof. He's like chained to this table, and they're like, well, like, how are we gonna fix this, right? Or what are we gonna do with it? What does it mean? And the lead scientist is this lady. I don't know what her name is, but she's got like a pantsuit that's also a scientific lab coat, and it's very cool. I thought.
Yeah, and she gets really excited when she sees this lamb folk, because she's like, this is exactly what we've been like trying to do, spontaneous molecular
Cell reconstruction.
Blah blah blah. So she gets really excited about it, but then Angus walks in, so she quickly covers the foot with a sheet to hide it from Angus, and you do think, oh,
Yeah.
she's got ulterior motives here.
Yeah. But then the thing is that he's gotten bitten and his hand looks worse now.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you need a shot. And he's like, talking to her about something else, right? And she's like, oh, can I come to the talk with you? And he's like, no, your reputation is bad. And she's like, I don't think you cared about my reputation when you asked me to come along for this project.
Yeah, well, you needed me to do illegal stuff.
And then he's like, blah, 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 blah. He says something mean. I can't remember what he says.
Yeah.
And then he goes, what about that shot then? And she just goes, nah, you should just have a plaster.
Yeah, she's like, you'll be fine. Pasta, basically. She shades him.
Yeah. But also, she implies that he is doing something not proper with the sheep. She mares at him.
She basically says, you're the one that had, like, you know, the extracurricular ideas.
She's like, I helped you out with your personal things. And when she said that, I was like, oh, so she's fucking him. And then she goes, meh. And I was like,
yeah.
What?
And he basically says, you know, he was just trying to, like, give her ideas and that he gave her the answer that she needed.
Yeah.
Which does make you think, weird.
What the fuck is going on here with these sheeps?
Yeah. Essentially, she implies he did something unusual. And he implies that it was necessary for science. And that's the only reason why. And we are like, what is this thing that happened? What is this thing?
And then we cut back to the cave. And they're kind of having, like, a heart-to-heart in the thing. Where she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I told you you had a selfish aura. Like, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? They're having a conversation about their backstories, basically.
And then
they're not that relevant. Yeah, they hear sheep in the caves. And I'm assuming maybe the sheep, like, finally got through that fence and, like, jumped in the hole.
Yeah. Or a sheep had called in from one of the, like, probably multiple entrances/exits of the cave.
Yeah, we don't know how the sheep got in.
Yeah. But
all we know is that they're there.
A sheep has made it in and it is echoing its bars through the cave. So they speed up.
They speed up and they're running. And eventually they have to go through this really tight, cramped hole.
And she's like, yeah, there could be an exit on the other side, but we could also end up stuck there forever.
She's now the one panicking and having a panic attack.
To be fair, she's making a valid point. But then they hear the bar behind them and they're like, okay, no, we don't have a choice.
Yep, go.
And she gets right in that hole.
And then he's now, because they get to this point where it's like really tight, and he's now the one coaching her, and she's like, you're a tree. You're a tree. The roots and the chakras and the thing.
She's like, wow, that actually does help. Which is funny because she did it to him earlier. So
I don't think she knew it would help.
Yeah, she's like, oh, damn, wait, that actually does work. I just thought it was nonsense.
I just thought I was being a prick.
And she's able to squeeze through the hole, but then the sheep that was chasing them reaches Henry and starts biting at his feet.
Yeah.
So he's kicking the sheep's face while trying to crawl through the hole. And you think, damn, she struggled to get through. Is he going to make it? But luckily she's able to pull him through. Phew, girl. And they make it to the other side of this cave.
Yeah.
From here, they know how they're sort of getting home.
And then it cuts to Mrs. Meg making more rabbit pie. Because she'd butchered the animal previously. Now she was chopping it up, making it into different things.
It cuts to a pot specifically that is full of organs from the rabbit. But it's like every organ from the rabbit. Yeah. That has been like washed and like put into this pot ready for this like organ pie. And it was very reminiscent of like the pile of rotten flesh at the bottom of the hazard pit.
Yeah.
And again, it's that thing of using food and there's like difficulty to distinguish the food from like the gore, and that again turns your stomach, and I think like contributes to this like just like great visual experience.
Henry and Experience, they arrive at this kind of old sheep pen, and inside the pen it's very dark, but they find Grant, and he is now fully transformed into a weresheep.
Can I just say, before this scene, we do get a scene of Angus, who's obviously made his way from the lab back into his house, and he's ranting in a mirror, just sort of like cursing out Henry, and he goes, that little bastard.
That was really funny.
That little bastard.
See, I wrote bastard down and I was like, where the hell did this come from? And I remembered that. So when you said that, I was like, oh, now I know where this is going.
And it was so cute because he like kind of like, ooh, he kind of catches himself and he's like, what was that? It's kind of like if you've watched Wicked, it's like Dr. Dillamond when he starts losing his ability to talk. Girl, you gotta see it. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, shout out if you like Wicked.
Tell us if you watched Wicked in the comments.
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, so now they're in the pen and they find Grant, and they do this weird, like, they do this really long shot of Grant from behind, but it's such a bad angle, and they do it in slow-mo, and I just think it looks awful.
Yeah, it's not.
It's just like shot. Half of his hair. It doesn't even show his face. It's from behind. It doesn't even show the reactions in that specific shot. It's literally just like unfocused, and it's of his like mane. basically.
Like, it almost feels like an afterthought. Like, maybe they didn't feel like they got enough footage.
They extended the run. They needed to extend the
Yeah.
runtime or something.
Or, like, the shot was, like, not very interesting. So they were like, oh, how do we just, like, it's the only shot we have of revealing him now. How do we make it a little bit more noticeable?
It's bad. And then they're trying to calm Grant down, but it's not working. And then Henry gets thrown across the room.
Yeah. And he grabs some shears and then...
Electric shears.
Yeah, and tries to sort of use them incorrectly on the throat of this were-sheep to, like, cut it.
It doesn't really work.
No, but it does trigger it.
Yeah. And so now they're running from pen to pen to pen in each one, closing the gates behind them, seeing if that works, locking him in, all that kind of stuff. And this entire scene is way too dark. It's just color graded really badly. You can't see anything.
Yeah.
Not even you could see stuff.
No, it was really difficult. Yeah. And I will say this entire time, the were-sheep is clearly retaining some sense of consciousness.
Yeah.
Grant is still in there, especially because as they're running through this pen, closing the doors, they end up at a dead end.
Yeah.
And it's a big gate and it's like locked behind them, and they turn around and the were-sheep Grant is stood there sort of looking at them, and that's when Experience starts distracting him.
Yeah.
And she's like, what happened to veganism? You broke your veganism.
Yeah.
Was it at least even organic meat? Like,
oh god, yeah. She's like, why is there blood on your face? Did you eat meat?
And the were-sheep kind of starts to consider it or look a little guilty.
It's like, yeah.
And while she's doing that, Henry is like undoing the lock on the gate, and they're able to like run out.
Yeah. It cutbacks to Tucker on the table.
Yeah, and he's like much further into transformation now.
Yeah.
His teeth have changed, his eyes,
his face even. Yeah, like he looks like a were-sheep now, basically similar to Grant.
Well, not quite yet.
No, but almost there.
Yeah, and then that's when the scientists are watching him.
And they're like, why don't we try adding this fluid instead and see if it will vaccinate him? And it works.
But she's like, wait, I want to see the transformation first.
Yeah, so she waits till he's fully transformed.
Yeah. Which is crazy because the way the transformation works is it seems to rapidly change the location of the bite.
Yeah.
Whether that's your hand, that's your foot, or your face or whatever.
Yeah.
And then slowly make its way through the rest of your body, and then it hits a point where it does a dramatic change.
Yeah, where he's like spasming and
in like 3 times speed.
Yeah.
And he completely changes, and then that's when she injects him with the cure.
Yeah, and then he changes back.
Flips it in reverse, and 3 times change back.
Yeah. And he's like lying on the table like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And then they're like, why don't we try and change him, like, why don't we try
reinfect him
in a bit, but first we have to do this other thing. So they leave him like chained up on a table.
Cured.
Yeah, cured.
But obviously you're panicking because like they're gonna come back.
They're gonna come back and change him again.
And re-inject him.
Yeah.
But also this is a big part of the film because it's like, oh my god, there's already a cure.
Yeah, which is good. You know, in a lot of zombie films, people just die.
Yeah, there's like never a cure, but like this one, there's a cure like within an hour of the disease.
Which is not too bad. You know what I mean?
No, it's not bad at all. But like I am looking at other scientists and other zombie films, so I'm like,
what are you doing?
Yeah, like you're not doing your job.
Wow.
So we said last episode there are sexy scientists and non-sexy scientists, and sexy scientists have the cure. That's what I'm saying.
Then it cuts to Angus's speech, and he looks awful. He looks like he's been like dead for 3 years, revived. And
he kind of looks like
also has the flu.
Have you ever seen Bridesmaids?
Yeah.
You know the wedding dress shopping scene when they all have food poisoning?
Yeah.
He looks like that. Specifically, like, is it Kristen Wiig? When she's trying to pretend she's not sick and she's sweating from head to toe and her skin looks grey.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he looks like. Like, exactly what he looks like.
He looks awful. Well, I was going to say, so the scientist runs off, right, into the woods. The lead scientist, we follow her, basically. And she runs off into the woods, but she gets stuck in the mud. And then she's surrounded by sheep and basically dies, right? And that's so, like, I feel like they should have waited a couple scenes before doing this, because it immediately relieves the tension, because now Tucker is just, like, locked in a safe room.
Yeah. Specifically, by the way, because there is a bit of a hole there. We cut to her leaving the lab where she left Tucker.
Yeah.
And her scientist colleague gets murdered in front of her by the sheep.
Yeah.
That's her first instance of seeing the sheep be evil. And her reaction to that is just, ugh. Like, she's mad at her colleague for, like, getting eaten.
Honestly, she's like a girl boss.
She's generally just like, ugh, like, this is so frustrating. But then the sheep turn on her, and that's when she runs into the woods.
Yeah.
But that reaction to me was so important to her character. The fact that her colleague literally gets murdered in front of her, she goes, ugh.
Her colleague's literally dead.
Man, that's her reaction. Ugh.
Yeah.
I have to carry it myself now. It's basically she's like, ugh.
Yeah. But the thing is, it just like destroys all the tension in terms of like, oh, are they gonna come back for this man because he's like tied up on this table now, right?
Yeah.
But no, they're just fine, and now Tucker is just safely sitting on this table in a locked room somewhere, you know, away from all the sheep. It cuts back to the speech, and they reveal what was in the big crate, and it was an alpha sheep.
Yeah. Or I call it the prize sheep.
I call it the alpha because...
What I believe... And
yeah.
tell me if... Sorry, why do you call it alpha?
Because this is an alpha.
Because it's the alpha.
Because it's the alpha, it's the leader, it's the one to trust.
I think this sheep is special because I think it was like made artificially.
Yeah. It's like
Like,
Dolly.
It's supposed to be this like perfect sheep. It's like pure white. Its fur seems like a beautifully like silky quality. It's very like young and healthy looking. It's like a beautiful prize sheep. But I think specifically because I kind of got lost on what they were actually doing.
Yeah, but we kind of...
Because I know they created zombie sheep, but I'm like, what was their original intention?
The original intention, I think, was just to create a better sheep, like sheep 2.0.
With like artificial
Yeah, like cloning or like, you know what I mean, DNA test tube
entanglement.
sheep. Yeah.
Involvement.
Yeah, but the sheep starts bleating like really loudly, and it just keeps going. And the guy who's talking to the sheep, Angus, is like, "Please stop talking, please stop talking." Like he's like rubbing the sheep, like, "Please stop talking."
It's kind of cute. It's kind of like when your dog like won't stop barking.
Yeah.
You're like,
and the sheep just keeps going.
Yeah, and then cut to the old lady, who is making the organ pie. She's like outside.
She's in this river, like
probably fishing for more meat to put in her pie.
I think maybe she's just grabbing like mussels, maybe, or something.
She loves anything that once was alive.
Yeah.
And she wants to eat it. But she hears the sheep barring.
But then she hears other sheep respond.
Yeah, it's like like in those films where like that creature or monster like makes
like the wolves.
Yeah, makes a big call so that all the animals will come support it. That's the vibe it already gives.
Yeah, definitely. At this point I was worried. I was like, are they gonna hurt my queen, Mrs. Meggs?
Yeah.
But they don't, which is good. I'm really happy about.
Well, we don't know that.
Oh, okay. Sorry. The sheep attack the guests. Like everybody they get surrounded by sheep. Everyone's getting attacked. Someone's lips get pulled off. Someone's intestines gets ripped out.
Someone's leg gets ripped off, and then he grabs his own severed leg and throws it at the sheep's head to try and get it to leave him alone.
I love it. Then there's a guy reading a fucking Bible thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be safe because my God will protect me. Nope.
He's reading some verse about like, follow the sheep for they are something.
Yeah.
When he's getting eaten too, he's like, take me. I'm like, what? It was such a weird little, because we didn't even know who he was. He wasn't a pre-established character.
He wasn't. He's just a guy praying.
Yeah, just randomly like, kill me, sheep, because this is what God wants. I don't know, bro. It was a bit weird. But
the thing is that Angus is not attacked.
Yeah.
He's fully fine.
The sheep are ignoring him.
Yeah, and by this point, he also has a hoof for a hand. His hand had completely transformed.
He unwraps the gauze he had on it,
yeah.
and it's a gross hoof hand.
Yeah.
But he takes the prize sheep, and he like heads out of the sort of like massacre that's happening.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I'm done here.
He heads back to the house.
Yeah. Mrs. Meggs finds Experience and Henry, and she drives them home.
She says, dinner's ready. And so she picks them from the car, and as they're driving home, she
sees sheep eat people.
Yeah, and she even like runs over one of the sheep, and Experience is like, yes. Experience, the animal rights activist, is like, yes. Yeah. But like, she seems so unbothered. She's like, oh my God, what's happening?
She's like, kissy stays in their newfangled zombie sheep.
Yeah. She's just like, let me get them home to dinner. That's more important.
Absolutely.
I do wonder things she's seen in her day, because she was unfazed by these zombie sheep.
This is her first rodeo.
Her reaction was like, ooh, that was it.
She's like, oh, it's just a Tuesday, innit? Angus is in the office with the zombie sheep. Yeah, but they don't know that.
He gets back to the house
before them, but they don't know that.
Yeah. Can I just say,
go on.
Before the rest get back, when he gets to the office with his prize sheep, he locks himself in his office.
Yeah.
And he sits in the corner with his sheep, and he gets weirdly intimate with the sheep.
Yeah.
Like he's comforting the sheep, and he's just like, it's okay. But it's like, it gets more and more intimate.
Yeah.
Like his face is getting really close to the sheep's face. He's like caressing his cheek against its cheek, stroking it. Like, it was weird. I'm sorry, it made me uncomfortable.
It was a very uncomfortable scene. And then the rest of them get home, and Angus doesn't even like go and see them. He's too busy with his sheep, and they don't know that Angus is home yet. So they are
in the kitchen.
They're in the kitchen,
ready for dinner.
And then Grant turns up, or he's already there.
Yeah. Oh, where's Sheep Grant?
Where Sheep Grant is there, and they're fighting him. And then there's another bit where fucking...
Did we do a good description of him, by the way?
I don't know.
So I feel like we didn't, but just to paint an image, it's just hulking. Think of a werewolf, but with like woolly fur. Their faces have like the bone structure changes to be more sheep-like.
Yeah.
Just a hulking beast. Oh, but he has his little man purse. That's very important.
He still has his
That's
fanny
how you
pack?
know it's the Grant were sheep. Is he has his little man purse on the side. So you're like, which one is this? Oh, that's Grant.
Yeah. Or someone will say Grant. They're fighting Grant then, and they have this whole thing with the shotgun where the Mrs. Meg is on the other side of the sheep, and Henry's on the side where the gun is, and so he has to get the gun, and then they're like shells, and he has to just throw the shells over to him, and he has to fumble and pick them up, and he can't cock the gun fast enough, and
then the gun gets knocked out of his hand by the sheep.
yeah, and then finally all of this faff with the gun.
I will say, important scene here. After the gun's knocked from his hand, he's knocked to the ground by the were sheep.
Yeah.
And the golden shears trophy that's next to him, he sort of thinks about reaching for, but he's fighting the sheep off of him. And I think that's the first instance of them implying that golden sheep shear is going to be a weapon or is a weapon.
Yeah.
But he doesn't get to it in time before
Experience just jabs him in a pressure point with a chopstick into his neck from behind.
Yeah, from behind the back of his neck.
Yeah.
And the were sheep collapses to the ground.
Yeah.
And they're like, what was that? And she goes,
She's like, acupuncture.
It's a pressure point that
instantly temporarily paralyzes you.
Yeah,
or if I did it wrong,
puts you in a coma.
And
like, did you do it wrong? And she's like, well, he's asleep, isn't he?
He's like, well, he's down. Like, what do you want from me?
Do you want it wrong or right, or do you want him out? Because that's
like, she get one.
Which also, like, she could do that the whole time.
Yeah.
She could do that. But how do you even, whatever. I'm just glad he was down.
Yeah.
And it was funny. It was funny.
But then they see that the house is being surrounded by sheep, and they're like, where the hell can we go? And then they're like, well, where's the only safe room in the house? Like, oh, well, it's Angus's study. Let's go in there. And they have to break down the fucking door.
Because it's locked, and like, what the fuck?
And Angus is in there. He's wearing a shirt and his boxers, is it?
Yeah, his trousers are gone. For some reason, he's removed his trousers.
And he's smoking a cigarette. His shirt's half open as well.
Yeah, shirt button down, in his underwear, smoking a cigarette out the window. Like, he just... Come on, you know what just happened. And Henry's looking at him in a second. Henry's looking at him and he's like what are you doing? And then that's when the prize sheep crawls out from around the desk, and Henry looks at the sheep and he looks at Angus in his boxers, his button down shirt, and his smoking cigarette.
He fucked that sheep. He's a sheep shagger.
He's a fucking sheep shagger.
Sheep shagger.
And I believe Angus specifically says like, oh no, sorry. Henry says to Angus, he's like, oh, you putting a new meaning to sheep husbandry.
Animal husbandry,
That's it, animal husbandry. That's it.
That really confirms it, really.
Yeah.
And the thing is it's disgusting, but he's like talking about how, they're like, get away from that sheep, it might attack you. And he's like, it won't, because it's part of me. And you're like, what do you mean? And he's like, our DNA is in this sheep.
It's family.
It's family.
And the guy like thinks like, oh my god, you like fucked a sheep to basically give birth to, you fucked a sheep to impregnate it to give birth to this sheep. But then he goes, it was more of a sperm sample actually.
So he used his sperm and implanted it into genetic sheep hybrid to create this alpha sheep.
Yeah.
That now has created zombie sheep. He's the father of the zombie sheep virus.
Which means that he did incest bestiality.
He is fucking the sheep that is basically his son.
The first person to do incest bestiality. I mean, talk about an original experience.
I think that
double homicide. Jail time. Which is worse? Incest or bestiality?
Both.
Which is worse?
No, incest bestiality is worse.
Both together.
Yeah.
No, but separately, which one's worse? Go on. I think I know which one.
They're both awful.
I know, but I think you have to think about it this way. God, can't believe I'm taking this like a serious question.
I think maybe we'll have to cut this bit out.
No, because genuinely think about it like this.
I don't want to.
Gun to your head,
I
right?
don't want gun to my head. I don't want to do this.
At least in an incest, two people can be of like the same age and power. And so that is mildly more consensual at least than fucking animal who cannot ever consent.
I don't want to have this conversation.
No, but like think about those like couples on like Jerry Springer and stuff who find out that they're like cousins or siblings and they never knew. Is that worse than fucking an animal that can't consent?
No, I guess not.
There you go.
I don't want this conversation.
Do you love like having awful conversations? It's like when
This is gonna come up. This is gonna be the one episode of ours that gets big, and everyone's gonna think about how we talked about incest bestiality.
No, but I love it because have you seen that guy on TikTok and he's like he basically challenges people saying like, I know this is bad, but tell me why it's bad. And the only answer people can give is like, oh, because if you have a baby, it could get sick. It's like, okay, what if they were barren or homosexual? And it's like, well, power dynamics are like, okay, but what if they were the exact same age and there wasn't a social power dynamic between them? What if they had never met each other and they like met for the first time at the ripe age of like 30? Why is it bad?
There's an anime where that happens.
Ew.
Yeah, where this girl, she meets this guy and they fall in love, and it's a romance anime for like the first 12 episodes. And then the dad turns up and he's like, yeah, actually, that's my long lost son.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Wait, I think I saw this on TikTok. His dad like got white hair.
No, this is like an older one from like 2006. They both have like black hair.
No,
I just
I
remember
heard of one like this on TikTok a few years ago, and like I think the dad had like white hair.
I don't know. The cover that I saw, cause, I saw a guy review it.
But I think it was Memoir.
No, I saw the guy review it like back in like 2015 or some shit, and it always stuck with me because I was like, that's such a weird like one for this guy to review.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Anyway, so he genetically his sheep child. He fucked his sheep child.
His feet. We don't know if it's a sheep son or sheep daughter. I assume daughter.
Because the sheep.
Yeah, but also specifically because it seems like they would want to make a female because then they could like produce more better ones. Oh, I don't know actually. Okay, which is worse? Incest bestiality or incest bestiality homosexuality?
Does being gay make a difference?
I don't know. That's the question.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know. People at home, sound off in the comments.
Are you homophobic? Tell us in the comments. Let's move on. Let's move on. I don't want to talk about this
This
anymore.
is my favorite part. This is gonna get clipped.
Yeah. So then Angus is like, I'm staying here, and they're like, we're gonna run, and then Angus is like, well, I'm staying here, and he's like, fine. So then Henry gives Angus the gun. I know he's a good person and all that, but you just saw your brother, and your brother basically admitted to fucking his sheep son, and you're like, here's the gun.
Yeah. A reason he gives him the gun too is because he's like, because Angus is refusing to leave, and he is worried that Angus is gonna get hurt, so he gives him the gun so he can protect himself. Angus literally watched you fall to your death earlier into that pit and said, that's the thing about farms, accidents happen. He literally watched you die and didn't help you.
Absolutely.
And yet you still have such a heart, or in my opinion, stupidity and lack of survival instinct, that you aid him in surviving. You still think, you know what, I know he basically murdered me, but I don't want him to die, so here's a gun to protect yourself. Fucking idiot.
Stupid.
Dum dum.
Dum dum. Dum dum sheep shocker.
Yeah, that's what you get for shagging sheep. Fucking
Dum dum.
dum dum.
So they're on this balcony, and they see that Angus is walking amongst the sheep, and he's going to his plane. He says, I'm going to my plane so that I can go to this conference thing and reveal the sheep to the world, right? And then like, if he gets out of here on his plane, then this infection's going to get out there.
Yeah, the sheep is going to spread internationally.
And so they are like, right, we have to go and stop him. And then they figure out that during their fight with Grant earlier, Henry got bitten.
He's been bitten on the arm.
Yeah, and he's like, well, now we know what happens. Oh my god, like, what's gonna happen?
Is this panic? And then she's like,
we don't know that yet.
Experience is like, come on, ground yourself. You're going to be okay. Breathe. You're human. You're a man.
No, she goes, you're a tree. And then he goes, no, I'm not. I'm a sheep. And then Mrs. Meggs goes, you're a man.
A man that your father would be proud of.
Mrs. Meg's such a queen.
It's a really sweet moment.
Yeah. And then he's like, right, I'm going to go. And you guys go to town and warn people, right? And so they split up. And Henry is this the part?
It sort of becomes that... This is the part of the film where it sort of becomes the final mission. Especially because at this point they don't know that there's a cure, and they think that he's going to die. So he sort of makes out with Experience to say goodbye. And
And
he
it cuts back to Mrs. Meg's watching them, which is funny.
he takes the golden shear trophy
Yeah.
with him as his weapon.
Mm.
And he plans to go walk through the field, but
Yeah.
then
They see a seat cover in Mrs. Meg's car that's like woolly.
and realize he can use it as a disguise to sneak through the sheep, which he does. He puts it over his back
And
and
he's
he slowly
crawling.
crawls through the sheep.
Yeah. And then the sheep,
A zombie sheep.
a zombie sheep decides...
To mount him and start shagging him, which he like.
He's, do you think zombie sheep call each other human shaggers, like we call Angus a sheep shagger?
I don't think the sheep knew he was human though, so it's like against his consent.
Catfish.
Yeah.
He catfished the sheep.
Yeah. You think that's what Angus says? He's like, I didn't even know it was a sheep. It told me it was a human.
I thought it was just really hairy.
She lied to me. I got honey trapped.
I got honey trapped by a sheep.
I didn't know. I just fell over into her. Just thought she was a cute girl in welly boots. His little disguise gets fucked off of him, and he like panics because he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna die.
Oh my god, I'm naked.
And then none of the sheep do anything. None of them attack him. None of them get mean. And he looks down at the wound on his arm and he goes, I am a sheep. And he realizes the fact that he's been infected is why they aren't attacking him. And it's not because, you know...
Of the Oldfield DNA or whatever
Yeah.
that's in some of the sheep.
And he thought at first that he had to transform a little bit, kind of like Angus did, to not be attacked.
Yeah.
But no, once he's infected, he's no longer a target. Like his
Yeah.
hormones change.
Yeah. So now the girls are in the car and Mrs. Meggs is teaching Experience how to use a gun, and Experience is kind of in, you know, the sunroof thing, so she's like standing up in the car and she's shooting infected people as they drive around in this like truck. Basically, it's
Yeah.
kind of badass.
And Mrs. Mayne's like, woohoo, we'll make a farm girl out of you yet.
Yeah. And then it cuts back to Angus, and Angus is turning into more of a sheep. He's transforming still. Yeah. Both of his hands are hoofs now. Like, how the hell is he going to drive that plane? His teeth are changing. He's like, you know.
But he started up the plane.
Yeah.
And he goes into the shed to go pick up his
alpha sheep.
Alpha sheep / pirate sheep.
/ son / wife.
But then when he gets in there, he changes even more.
Yeah.
Like his head starts to literally go now. Yeah. He's like fully morphing, well, almost fully morphing into a were-sheep. He's pretty much there.
Yeah. And then Henry turns up and he sees his fully transformed brother.
Yeah. It's the final showdown.
Should we tell them about our ordeal at this part of the movie?
Yeah, sure.
We watched this movie on a streaming service called Plex, which has like some free movies, some paid ones, like kind of like Amazon.
You can buy films, or sometimes you have films on demand.
Yeah. And this is the first time we'd ever used this service. And during this part, it kept glitching out and it would just stop.
It would just stop playing, and we'd have to play again, go back to where we were. Yeah. We'd get like 10 seconds,
and it doesn't have a scrub bar. It didn't have a scrub bar. And
sometimes the scrub bar will pop up randomly, but that was like 2 out of 10 times.
Yeah, basically. And it took us, basically it would play like 30 seconds of the movie, and sometimes less, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just a tiny bit.
Sometimes we'd just get there and we'd be like, play, and it would just jump out.
Yeah, and we'd have to try again and again and again. So we recommend finding it somewhere else. Yeah.
Although I will say, after trying it like 20 times, you like tried to look if it was on any other platforms.
Yeah, I did. I was like, all right, I found it on Dailymotion, and then
Plex was like, oh, Dailymotion, no, don't leave,
us.
And it just started working again randomly. Just started working again after like half an hour. Ugh.
Such a stupid fucking thing.
It was so frustrating. But the point is, the final showdown.
Yeah.
The Angus were-sheep versus Henry.
They're fighting, and I swear Angus is still kind of transforming during this, and there's more slow-mo as well.
Yeah. There is. And they get into a fight, though. That's when Henry stabs Angus were-sheep in the neck with the shears.
With the golden shears.
And after he does that, Angus freaks out, pulls back in pain, but then starts to transform even more into like more of like a mega were-sheep.
Yeah.
Like even more of a were-sheep. Like he really is becoming the final boss. Yeah. So like you think like, oh, he's got him, he's stabbed in the neck, but now he's turning into
second phase.
Yeah, a second phase boss.
Second phase.
So he's like fucked, and he starts like backing up. He starts transforming to like mega beast, and they both back up into the field out of the barn.
Yeah.
And that's when the dog, we didn't even mention at all. This
Oh
one.
yeah, no, he's back now. The dog.
We didn't ever mention the dog.
No, the thing is, we did mention him once because the thing is, the dog. We don't know where the hell this dog is half the time.
The dog left the entire film.
The dog was sent away when they first arrived at the science lab, right? The first time, and then the dog comes out of the forest because that's where the dog ran into, and Henry uses the dog
to herd
them.
the
'Cause
were
it's a
sheep because it's a sheep. Like I said earlier, with like its instinct not to jump in a hole.
Yeah.
The same instinct that allows sheep to be herded by
dog.
dogs was in the were sheep.
Yeah.
So it started to like sort of like lean down to like be submissive towards the dog.
And it starts backing up as well.
But then the plane from earlier that's been going crazy around the field because he turned it on
Yeah.
and it's been going in circles.
Yeah.
Comes up behind the were sheep and like meets the
Yeah.
back of the were sheep, like really tears him up.
Yeah.
And he falls to the ground and Henry thinks, oh my god, the were sheep's been defeated.
It's done, finally.
So he turns his back
around.
on it, and then all of a sudden there's another slow-mo shot
And it's the shit. He's
of
rising
Angus
up
rising.
behind him, all bloodied and shit.
Yeah, and the monster's not dead. But that's when Tucker, the sexy farm manager, turns up on a quad
So
bike.
fine.
Like, dun, 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 dun,
Yes.
dun. And he comes in like wearing like what looks like one of those like insecticide sprayers.
Yeah.
And he jumps off the quad bike, and he injects the cure into Angus's,
Yeah.
half-eaten were body,
Yeah.
and he falls to the ground and like gets cured back into a human.
Yeah. And they're like, oh my god, you're alive, blah, blah, blah. But then Angus decides, no, I want to be with my sheep.
Yeah, he's like, it's not over, and he walks over to his sheep. His back has been torn up.
Yeah.
Because we saw him get torn up when he was a were sheep, but he's transformed back into a human. But
And
his
his back's
back,
still torn up.
you could see the muscles and these lumps and these like fleshy
Yeah.
bumps, and his face is half torn. And Henry's telling him like, no, come back here, it's over, come on.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I want to be with my sheep, take me.
And the sheep start eating him in
Yeah.
the barn.
And specifically his prize sheep, the one he raped,
Oh yeah.
runs up ahead of all of them. It's like, I get first bite.
And he bites his dick off.
His dick off, which again was very stretchy, which isn't abnormal for dicks getting eaten in a
Yeah,
film.
in Dixon movies they're always stretchy.
But it was extra stretchy.
Because again, all of the flesh in this movie is super stretchy.
It's the core. It's stretchy core.
Stretchy core. But then all the sheep are farting at the same time. And obviously, if you remember from earlier, sheep farts are all methane. And so, is it Experience or is it Tucker who
It's
throws
Tucker.
a lighter into the barn and it fucking explodes?
Yeah, they blow up the sheep farts and Angus dies with them.
Yeah, which is what he wanted.
Yeah. And that is the end of the main fight. Cut to the aftercare of the film.
Yeah, the next day, basically.
It's sunny and they are herding humans through a little like sheep herding thing.
And they're curing them one
They're
by
curing them
one.
by one. And they're all sat in the corner with blankets over them like
Like,
looking
what the fuck just happened to me?
traumatized animals.
They get they cure Grant as well, and he just looks fucked.
Yeah. Traumatized.
He has a chopstick sticking out of his neck as well, which is funny.
It is.
And then Mrs. Meggs comes up and is like, oh, I've made you some snacks, guys. And
They're mountain clams.
mountain oysters.
That's it. Mountain oysters.
And the boys are like, nah,
I'm
we're good,
okay.
we're good.
But
and
Experience is like,
Oh, I eat some seafood.
let me try. And she's like, oh, this is very good.
And then she's like, oh,
And then Henry whispers in the ear.
the
and he
sheep
says,
balls.
you know, you're eating sheep testicles. And she spits that shit right out.
You liked them before you knew what they were.
I will say, one of my favorite things about was it Old May?
Mrs. Meggs.
Miss May, that's it. Mrs. Meggs is a line that we didn't speak about, but when she first bumps into the were sheep, she does say, I'm not scared of you. I've eaten like many of you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's so funny to me.
She
Like,
does not give a shit.
I've eaten so many of you. I'm not scared of you.
Yeah, she is awesome. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, sorry guys, that was so all over the place. I feel like there were things we forgot, things we didn't mention. But you know, at the same time, if you wanted all the details, you would just watch the film yourself.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's not why you're here.
Yeah, no, you're here for us.
And
Discussions about bestiality and incest. I hope this episode made you think.
I really hope it did. If you leave with anything, leave with a more profound sense of right and wrong.
Yeah, I think the main moral of this film is don't fuck sheep.
Yeah. No, actually, because it all started with him impregnating the sheep.
Yeah.
That's why this all happened.
I feel like-
Bestiality bad. That's the
Yeah.
entire thing. Which, if you didn't know that already, that's concerning. But I'm glad you know now.
I almost feel like maybe it had a message about veganism and animal practices and farming and GMOs and stuff, but I don't think it delves far enough into any of that to be truly meaningful.
Yeah.
I think it really, like, maybe it just kind of uses it as set dressing just to be a funny, like, zombie sheep comedy.
Yeah, I agree. As far as my thoughts about it,
Yeah.
actually, weirdly, I gave it a 3 out of 5.
I was thinking about similar. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I want a 2.5 or a 3.
I went with 3. I actually really liked it. I think it's one of the best goofy zombie films. As far as like the zombie chickens, the zombie priests, the zombie whatever, right? The silly zombie films, especially the animal zombies, I think it was one of the better ones I've ever seen. It felt justified. It didn't feel too goofy. The humor was lighthearted and complemented with the rest well. The gore is fun. And it doesn't feel like I'm not laughing at the effects, the monsters and the creatures, or thinking this is very silly. I don't know. As far as like such a silly premise goes, they did a really good job with it.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I don't think it was one of the best. I just feel like some of the jokes were very hit or miss for me.
You do like really bad zombie films though.
I do. I mean, the thing is that I also, like, I've watched a lot of zombie films, and from, like, there's the kooky, like, you know what I mean, crazy funny ones that I've seen. This is not one of the best. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's just not one of the best.
I disagree. I think it is.
Okay. Well, you can be wrong.
I'm not though. I genuinely think this is one of the better ones. They're often like very like low quality, etc. I will say like other goofy zombie films are usually funnier, but that's what I liked about this film is it didn't have to rely on humor because it wasn't that goofy. It didn't have to lean into the goofiness because it's a genuinely one of very few like animal zombie films that I could take not seriously but face value, let's say.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I've seen that many animal zombie movies. I think I've seen, like, Zombievers, and that's it. Have you seen Zombievers?
No, not Amoebas.
Zombievers is really funny, because they use puppets. Should we watch that next? Let us know in the comments.
We don't want to watch that.
I do.
Zombievas?
Yeah, that was on Netflix for a while.
I've never
watched it
even
with
heard of it.
I watched it with my mom.
Zombie sharks, zombie chickens, zombie rats, zombievers.
Yeah. My overall thoughts were, I thought it was an interesting concept. I thought some parts were funny, others not so much. I don't really think it has that much to say, but that's okay. Like, some films just can be taken at face value.
Some films are just visual experiences.
Yeah. I don't really think I'm going to be thinking about this movie anytime soon, you know? Like, I have my favourite zomcoms, and they're like Return of the Living Dead and Dead Snow.
I would say I watched this film years ago, like when I was much younger.
Yeah.
And a lot of those scenes have stuck with me. Like, I think about this film sometimes, like, it does come back to me. There were very distinct visual scenes that, like, have stuck with me for, like, literally years.
That's fair enough. It's just, my parents had this on DVD, and I wasn't really allowed to watch it. I think I remember seeing the ending when I was very young. But I remember more the DVD cover than anything else, because it's like a zombie sheep and the moon. Yeah.
That's really cute.
But I don't, like, again, this isn't one of my, like, zomcoms that I'll come back to and rewatch, I don't think.
No. I also liked a lot of the shots, like the opening shot with the yellow tinge was very beautiful. The shots later on when it becomes nightfall and they show this like nighttime scenery of the sky that's like this bluish, purple, dark sky, and the sheep sort of like running in herds like over the hills, and that was a really, really fun visual.
Yeah.
And I think the gore had a distinct style, and the relationship between the way the food was portrayed and then the gore was portrayed, I really liked. But yeah, I only give it 3. I wouldn't budge to go any higher because I agree with like it doesn't have that much to say, but I think it has distinct scenes, and I think it does all the things. It does the like silly like, oh, I can't be her because I'm a sheep, the goofiness of like, you know, the costume. It does the little like humor of like the sheep driving the van,
Very New Zealand humor, I think.
etc., etc. But I think it could have been like had more interesting editing. I think the lighting could have been better.
Music could have been better.
Music could have been better. So all those things are exactly why I couldn't budge further than 3. But I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
It was a good, like...
And there's a lot that I can sit here and be like, I really appreciate the gore. I really appreciate some of the like visual scenes and cinematography.
It was an enjoyable film, yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know what you thought if you'd seen Black Sheep. What's your favourite zombie movie? What animal do you think would make a good zombie? And is there a movie about it?
Yeah, she will watch it.
I will watch it. I'll watch most zombie movies.
That's a threat.
You can. Right, let's do a little goodbye, shall we?
Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for watching.
Please come back for more episodes in the future.
Please come back for more. You can find... in the YouTube description, you will find our important links related to social justice and Palestinian liberation at the top. And then underneath, you will be able to find our social links. Where can they find us?
They can find us. Well, they can find the podcast
Yeah.
anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Anyway, you listen to podcasts.
Um,
And our social medias include Instagram,
TikTok,
and Twitter that we don't use.
I mean, do we even want to use it now? I feel like we
No.
should get on like Blue Sky or something. I don't know.
What's that?
Blue Sky.
What's that?
It's where everyone went after Elon Musk like fucked up Twitter.
Do you know what we should get? Xiaohongshu. Would we get banned if we were on Xiaohongshu? Let us know. Can anyone do Chinese subtitles for us?
Yeah, let us know. Thank you. Well, I hope you guys have a great time.
Have a
And
great
we'll
day.
see you in the next one.
Any requests, send them over. Bye.
Bye.